Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harrisburg City Council Legislative Session. This is Tuesday, May 9, 2017. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Mr. Petrosky, please do the roll call.
Mr. Allett?
Present.
Mr. Baltimore? Ms. Daniels?
Here.
Ms. Hodges?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Majors? Here. Ms. Williams?
Here. And please note for the record that Mr. Baltimore is excused. Thank you. Moving on to the invocation, Mr. Johnson.
I would like to have a moment of silence as we think of our loved ones, the ones we hold closely, our friends and the family. Just keep them all in positive thoughts, as well as everyone else in the city of Harrisburg. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Moving on to Pledge of Allegiance, Ms. Daniels.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. Moving on to communications. This evening, Mr. Weber will give us an update on the CAT board meeting. Mr. Weber, please.
Okay. Good evening, Council President, members of Council. I was asked yesterday to come and just present about the fiscal year 18 CAT budget. Obviously, there's been some news about that, and thought it'd be best to sort of discuss it where we're at, what Rich Kotz, who's my colleague sitting on the board as representative of the city of Harrisburg, has learned over the short period of time we've both been on the board. And the week since we actually received the budget. We've spent a lot of time over the last 7 days digging into the document, had meetings with the other board members, both on the aside and actually at the board meeting on last Thursday afternoon. Met with the executive director, the finance director, the communications director, and then talked among ourselves to try to get a good sense in a very short period of time, really what the moving parts were about the budget, try to get a sense of, how we should, and in method we should approve it, knowing that the timeline to do so, there's a lot of benchmarks to meet federal and state funding, federal and state funding requirements, so there's certain resolutions that have to be submitted by a certain time period, so there was an alacrity necessary for the process. So this is sort of a presentation of what Rich and my perspective of what we found in that week. So the bottom line is that the CAT budget is lean. It's probably too lean, actually, as that there's still little capital investment occurring in it. So it's obviously that the condition of CAT's capital stock, its bus shelters, its maintenance facilities, and other equipment necessary to running an effective and efficient public transit system is starting to wear down. And it's degrading the most important part of any system, which is timeliness and service availability. And I think we all sort of see that, and it's part of the reason that there's been a move to try to find other ways to secure long-term financing and efficiencies in its operations. One example of this is that years ago, CAT, and you've seen them, bought these hybrid buses, which is done at a time where it was important to save on fuel costs. However, they're all bought at the same time, so they've all gone off warranty simultaneously, and their mechanics at CAT don't have the knowledge and skills to fix them. So there's a huge ongoing now increase in the service costs that are going to have to be budgeted there that have to be pulled away from other resources to be able to get those fixed and maintained in a timely fashion. So some highlights of the fiscal year 18 budget. There will be no fare increase, so that's a good thing for ridership. The budget is also truly balanced. It's the first time, actually, in a number of years, I don't know how far it's gone back, that the budget does not rely on dipping into reserves. In fact, there's actually not really any reserves left because they've been going through them at times. But best practice, like most places, you'd like to have 2 to 3 months, and so there is some some desire to build those back up again. There's also some new initiatives in the budget to try to both decrease costs and increase revenue. Some of these are, one is freezing management salaries, rather than giving the same percentage raise as negotiated in the union's collective bargaining agreement, as has been past practice, as well as introducing a daily pass for service, as before there's only been monthly passes or a per ride fare available option. Now, these two initiatives will require a vote to amend the budget as proposed at our meeting on Thursday, but I do think that will pass. So, other cost-saving measures include bus skin and shelter advertising sales consolidation with other regional transit agencies. They've taken the initiative to actually, when there's someone who wants to advertise on bus shelters, as you see, or on the buses themselves, they now can buy through one point of contact. There's actually a person that's actually in Harrisburg local, and they can purchase and have those on any transit facilities, which is nice. So it provides a lot of flexibility for buyers, and actually believes it should actually increase revenue for CAT itself. There's also investment in training and operator best practices necessary for CAT to meet NTSB standards. So in other words, to be eligible for a 30 to 40% savings in its liability insurance rates. That's something that had not been done previously. And PennDOT is also conducting for free the first comprehensive operations analysis done on the CAT route system in at least 2 decades. This is anticipated to save about 5 to 8% of route operating costs due to a realignment of route scheduling via optimization that should also not only reduce overtime costs, but also reduce what I've learned is the sort of like the worst thing a transit system can have, which is called deadheads. Let me just quickly explain what a deadhead is. That's when there is a bus that's actually running, so there's fuel costs, wear and tear on the bus, and costs of paying the operator, but it's not revenue producing. So there are, my understanding, about 16 to 18% of all bus hours in operations is considered deadhead or non-revenue producing. And that is something that needs to be reduced. It's at least 3 times higher than most other regional transits. Part of that, they go by what's called a New England style of route management. That's sort of old school. It's, as we know, we have this hub and spoke system here rather than a circulator system. And so that is going to be, PennDOT's conducting the study and then providing analysis and suggestions to how to improve that. So that will also reduce overtime costs as well, they believe, and hopefully provide actually better service for those who want to ride it and actually get to where they want to go in a convenient and timely fashion. So that's sort of it I have for now. I mean, I could go into more detail. I didn't want to take up too much time. But if you have any questions, comments, I'd definitely be happy to address them.
My only concern is that if we pass the budget, so what's our outcome? Because we passed the budget and Cumberland County doesn't submit any money. They haven't submitted any money since January of this year. And they did put a letter out that said effective June 30th, they're not matching, they're not doing a local match. So what does that do? Because Cumberland County, Dauphin County, and Harrisburg has to submit money as a local match accordingly, so the state will give them money. That means the state doesn't give their share, or what? What is the outcome of that?
So that's sort of 2 separate issues, right? So we have to pass the budget because we also then have to pass a resolution saying that the funding, the local match funding from the 3 participating municipalities.
But you're telling a story if you do that. That's why my question. If you
Right,
do a resolution that says that the 3 municipalities will be a local match, the state says, okay, I'll give you the money, but yet still Cumberland County hasn't made it clear. I mean, this is my question to you. You're a representative.
I
want
agree.
you to, I want these questions to be asked at the table.
Yeah, I have had conversations with Cumberland County's representatives. I can't speak for them,
No, you can't.
but I do believe that they will fund as appropriately and as they're obligated to.
They haven't done it since January of this year.
I understand.
There's already a letter in place that says, effective June 30th, they
I
will
understand.
stop all the funding towards CAT.
The-
They put in, what, 387, and we put in 370-something?
It's pretty even third, isn't it?
What's that?
Is it pretty even third?
No,
No,
they're-
no, no.
it's not
Dauphin
even.
County, then us, then Cumberland County.
Right, right. It's not a fair share.
You know, I don't, I've spent a lot of time with, you know, the other members of the board and trying to understand the situation and trying to not get caught up in what's been in the press. Sometimes what's there is perhaps exaggerated than what is the actual truth. I think that they feel, and I can understand, that there has been a lag in at least moving the ball forward at all about regionalization. You know, and I think they have good reason, understanding that CAT has a lot of issues. Some of them probably cannot be addressed without some sort of broadening of the cost base and re-examining of the operations. And I don't want to get into, I'm not sure that I fully understand regionalization, but it comes in many flavors. And I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. I have heard commitments from Cumberland County that they want to continue to participate in a regional transit authority, that they understand that you know, it's in their benefit as a economic development tool and as a partner in the growth and development of jobs and opportunities in the region, to make sure that there is a public transit authority, operational, running, that's providing quality service. But I do think that they believe, and if you sort of look at what's available, the only tool that they have to sort of push things forward outside of public pronouncements in the press is withholding of money. It's a very blunt tool. It's not, I don't think, necessarily something that is threatened, should be used, but that's not up to me. But I understand why maybe they feel that that's something that they have to be explicit about. But so, you know, I don't want to speak for them, but I do believe that their intention is correct and in the right place, and that they do want to move forward in a positive way to make sure that there is a operating authority that's providing, you know, the public transit options that's necessary for the whole region. And I can't believe that they would, you know, sacrifice all that based upon a few $100,000. But, you know, that's my opinion. So
where you been for the last 6 months? No, my question, now, I'm not being smart, but I think they're trying to strong-arm us to go with rapid transit. And really, actually, 80% of the ridership is between Harrisburg and Stilton. Rapid transit does not have the large number of ridership that we have. And they want us to go as a regionalization with Rapid being the public transit authority.
I have not heard that.
They said that here.
Cumberland County?
Yeah, when they were here. They talked
The
about
commissioner,
it. Yeah,
right?
the Cumberland
Yeah.
County Commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was part of the wedge then, is because Dauphin County did not want to go down that route. Dauphin County wanted to talk more to Lebanon. Cumberland County wanted to talk more to York. And then here we are, the wedge in between.
So you are represented, that's why we're here today.
I
And
understand.
We're relaying to you what we feel that we would like to do. We're
I
not going to be
understand.
strong-armed by Cumberland County because they have an ideal, and we're supposed to, you know, step into it and take it effect because they want to do it. But it is in writing. And I know I have a copy of that letter stating June 30th, effective June 30th, they will not submit any more money to Capital Area Transit. And they have not submitted any money since January 1st of this year. But since you're our spokesperson, I mean, if you don't want to be that, I can be that table.
No, I'm trying to make sure that, I don't think that it's in anyone's interest to have CAT fall apart.
No. But we don't want to lie to the state.
I understand
By
that.
approving this budget, and we're saying that, hey, that they're going to give this money when they already said they weren't. Dauphin County gives money, Harrisburg gives money, and we do it because we want that local match. And
My
the state finds
understanding
out.
is that if we can have some agreement, an MOU, which has been talked about already between Dauphin County and Cumberland County. I mean, I think about sort of just let's start talking about what does regionalization mean.
Mr.
The state obviously is in favor of a regional approach. They're putting a lot of economic incentives.
Not as Rabbit being the.
I understand what has been in the public.
We'll lose 100, well over 100 and something jobs opposed to what they're losing.
I have been very clear that routes availability and jobs were the two key issues and concerns of Harrisburg. That's what I heard. And I understand why that's an issue. And I have not heard anything other than we understand and that they believe that regionalization and a more cost-effective operating entity can actually expand routes and expand jobs.
Have they given you an analysis of how it's going to be cost-effective over a period of 5 years,
So-
or over a period
So
of...
a study that was
that's
done
that's what we're trying to get to
Yeah,
some
but that was
degree.
not an accurate study, I understand. It was not an accurate study because they didn't have all the information that they need to input it.
So there is the current head of the Berks-Lancaster Authority is conducting a study to sort of just give some examples, proposals, analysis, has some experience, understands the region. That should be ready for it's taking a little longer than they expected, but that's supposed to be presented to the board in the next couple weeks. That should help a little bit, obviously.
What is that study? What is the study?
It's an analysis of the current operating environment of CAT from an outside entity who knows local.
So Brooks Lancaster's doing that of CAT?
The
Or PennDOT?
right. So it's a study that the head of the Berks-Lancaster entity is undertaking.
Right. So they're going to analyze CAT to say that.
Some of the operating stuff and also present some because they've had experience with
The merger.
with merging, right? And so that's the point. Regionalization, I think, has this like it's a merger, and you'll end up with having sort of one consolidated different entity, and I think that's not true for lots of reasons. First of all, as we know, when you start getting into any sort of entity consolidation, dealing with what has happened in the city over the past couple of years, there's a lot more issues that come up, and it's swallowing the proverbial elephant. I think it's tough to do, and it's take a long time, and you have to sort of start small and build up as you progress. There's operational, logistical, philosophical, political challenges you have to overcome. Perhaps Cumberland County doesn't understand that whole, minefield, but
I think that they do. I think it's the political strong arm that they're doing because they want to have more control in the process. And I
They
think
want
my
to see
concern
separate.
with that is that we're the economic engine for the transportation. Like, I mean, more people are coming into our city for work and vice versa than York or Lancaster for that matter. And I think that's where we have to be the ones who get to drive that a little bit more because we have more to lose as a result of any type of regionalization that occurs if we give up too much.
right. I haven't heard anyone giving up anything. I haven't heard anything about you can't consolidate unions, for example. There's something when you accept federal transportation dollars, existing contracts have to stay in force. There's a lot of different permutations in what you have locally. I'm just learning about this, but that's talking to the CAT solicitor today. You know, the Berks-Lancaster was not a merger, for example. It was a consolidation of the management, not really of the operating entities. So, you know, that's, I think, definitively opportunities that CAT could partake in when you have consolidation of purchasing across different, you know, you can get better, make better deals, get better prices. You can have, you know, one manager fulfilling the role at a, you know, then perhaps 2, 3, or 4, without necessarily really adding or losing any jobs at the driver or the dispatcher level. So, you know, I don't know enough. I'm, you know, trying to absorb as much information as possible, but I do think there is goodwill there. It's just a matter of the urgency of moving forward, and obviously Cumberland County has a lot more of that, so they feel like they have to push the process along. But I don't think that they're talking not in bad faith. I think they do want to see things move forward collaboratively.
I think you're being a little overly diplomatic.
I don't want to speak for them.
I know,
Well-
but I think there's.
You know, so I don't want to.
I don't think you have to speak for them. I
Yeah.
think they've already spoken for themselves.
Yeah.
They've came before this council and told us that their preferable partner would be Rapid Transit. They already have an agreement of shared services for their shared ride with Rapid Transit. They're a part of the Central Pennsylvania Transit Authority that's looking to explore and go down that route.
Right.
Okay.
And Dauphin County itself, it's saying they would like to go a different route, and the citizens of the city of Harrisburg were stuck in the middle.
And so you can see I'm trying to understand that and make sure that we don't get left. We have a lot to gain or a lot to lose.
We don't have anything to lose. We're in the middle. As a matter of fact, they're trying to pull.
No, I
We're
think
trying to be strong.
I don't know
we do have something to
about
lose. I
that.
I think
think
that we have to lose, no, because they're trying to merge with us. And they're trying to strong arm us. They sat at this table and told us that they've already developed that relationship with Rapid Transit.
Only in
They
the
wanted to
power.
have 2 seats on the board and allow City of Harrisburg to have 1 seat.
That has not been.
Well, we're telling you, we are here to tell you what has happened since you were not a part of that session.
And then not only that, the follow-up to that is every action that Cumberland County has taken since then has been to try to outmaneuver or point out the failures of CAT to make their case stronger that it could be Rapid Transit. And I think that's just the wrong approach, because then we're, again, it's not benefiting our community, I guess that's at the end of the day. And they're not being an effective partner in that. And I think that's the fear that we have. We keep going down this path, and we've said many times, both among this body and publicly, that we don't want to be the political pawns between 2 warring factions over something as important as regional transportation. And that's the
And because most of the circulator routes are in Harrisburg, those are the high-cost routes. CAT falls apart. Let's be honest. All the state funding goes away. All the federal funding goes away.
It's going to go away.
Who's
If the
going to
3 of
pick
us
up
don't
those
agree,
routes?
It's going to go away.
Well, that's why this is so crucial.
Right. And I think.
Are you here champion for Cumberland County? Because it certainly sounds like you're champion for Cumberland County, and you right here are employee of
I don't think
Harrisburg.
that's fair to say.
Well, you keep saying you're not speaking on their behalf, but you're telling us, well, let's be clear, we're very much aware of that. We're very much, but I don't want to have a MOU and the 3 entities are not in agreement.
I think that's premature. I think that we need to continue to talk. I think we have influence. We shouldn't presuppose where things are, regardless of what was said.
We're only going on what was said. That's the problem. Like, we've always maintained, I think, the same statement that we don't want to be caught as this political go-between between the Dauphin County and Cumberland County. And when the Cumberland County Commissioner was here, they made their intentions very clear about what they wanted to do. And they wanted us to sign off on a resolution in support of that effort. That was why they were here.
Is there any way, there's two things I want to know. What's really like the drop dead date as far as Cumberland County submitting their match? And then the second thing is,
Either July 1 or August 1, and I'm going to...
July 1.
I'm not sure. I know that's what Tony probably said. I hear October 1st, so I have to get more clarity about that. I got to talk to Jill tomorrow about that.
and then the second thing is, I think what we need to discuss is, there's all these different studies that people can talk about. There's studies that's been done, the study that Berks and Lancaster is coming in, all these different studies. We need to get to a point where all three bodies agree to a study. You know, that's something that hasn't happened yet. There's all these different studies that were done, but none of the three bodies have said, all right, let's sign this MOU that we're comfortable with to move forward with a study that takes that next step towards looking at regionalization.
I agree.
So I think,
I agree.
you know, it's if I was in Cumberland County, you know, that's something I would want to see. I know that's something that we are asking that we need to see, and I'm sure Dauphin County would need to see. I don't know how those conversations take place, but that's what needs to happen. And I think, you know, as part of moving forward, you know, even as far as our match, I want to see a study. You know, we're constantly seeing, you know, CAT shortfalls, and we're not really, you know, they're living, you know, fiscal year to fiscal year, and they're not in a position to kind of plan for capital investment for the future. So I think this is a great time, you know, after passing this budget, to kind of come together and sign this MOU and agree upon a study that we all want to do, so we can all stop tugging and saying, oh, rabbit this, let's agree upon a study that we all can agree upon, and it really kind of create that path forward, you know, for the region.
And I guess it's the cart before the horse, right? We recognize the writing on the wall that we have to do some sort of regionalization at some point.
There's two
So
studies
what has to
done on
be
this.
defined?
There's already 2 studies done on this.
But people,
No,
I mean,
I know what
no
you're
one's
saying, but
buying
there's,
into that.
no, but there were studies done on this, but I agree. There was already studies done on this, but I agree with Mr. Johnson that, you know, all 3 entities have to agree.
because all the studies, so there was a study done by PennDOT. So that was like the big overarching study that kind of said like, hey, you know, we have this big pot of money,
Right.
you know, we're going to look at everything. You know, clearly looking at everything wasn't ideal for everyone. You know, there's a lot of, you know, political things and a whole bunch of stuff that, you know, probably wouldn't make everything work. So now, you know, Cumberland County came to us and they wanted us to sign off on a study to look at, you know, us, you know, Cumberland County and York and Rapid Transit. Now I hear about another study that's separate, you know, doesn't involve really like Cumberland County just looking at Berks and just looking at the operating factions of, I guess, CAT. So there's all this study. So, but these studies, you know, somebody's getting paid to do these studies, and we're not getting no results. That's kind of really, I mean, we're getting some results, but we're not getting the optimal results of saying like, okay, as a region, what's realistic things that as us being 3 governing bodies that we can agree with as far as regionalizing this area, and then what does that look like, and let's get this study together to map that out for us. That hasn't been done.
So you would send that message, would you take that message back?
Absolutely. I think everyone would agree with that as well. I do. And I do believe that that will be accepted. So I absolutely will take that back and be very clear about what council is requesting.
And at this point, are you in agreement with passing this budget?
I do. I think we have to. The budget is, you know, there's not a lot of fat in there.
Do
There's
you
some
understand the
good
budget?
things. I think I understand a lot more than I did a week ago. Yeah, we've spent a lot of time on it. You don't, you know, the things that stuck out, you question, you drill down on. I know a lot more about the pension. You know, they have an MMO like we have an MMO. That was another, for example, consolidated incentive that PennDOT has just stepped up and said that, there's their pension is about 82% funded, which is sort of moderately distressed. There's about a $300,000 a year contribution that just like we have to make as a city to the police pension fund, that the CAT has to make. If there's a move towards any sort of consolidation, PennDOT's willing to fund that MMO on a go-forward basis. So, that's so that everyone's sort of starting fresh in some sense. So that's, but I know about the where they can save money with some of the liability insurance program by getting more training with operators. There's understanding sort of roles of management. They don't have a procurement manager. Many of the federal contracts require a procurement manager for understandable reasons. So we need to put one in the budget and hire somebody, or you could lose all federal funding. So I understand sort of the weak points there, and I think I've learned a lot in a week, and can articulately move forward and have some good conversations, and hopefully keep the unity of the three agent entities together, and moving in alignment. It's.
Okay. Is PennDOT still willing to give the $4 million to us?
I haven't talked to PennDOT. I would assume that that's still on the table. I don't think that's changed. How that works and what benchmarks they're looking for, I don't know. I got to learn more about that. I mean, since I've gone on the board, it's really only been about the budget and any sort of regionalization, whatever that means. I think that's obviously the next, and there's going to be a lot more conversation about that and understanding what PennDOT's role in that and what they can bring to the game as well. I have to sort of get more informed about.
Any other questions, council members? Okay, Mr.
Okay,
Weber.
thank you.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to courtesy of the floor. Anyone at this time, am I right, who would like to come to the mic, please do so.
Hi there.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you? I'm Sam Moore. I'm representing the stops today, Harrisburg, and I just wanted to thank Ms. Daniels and Mr. Johnson for letting us know that Resolution 44 was among us. We're here because we, since 2015, have been talking about police union contracts and what we can do to ensure public safety for all. And this isn't really an attack at all on police, but it's for everyone's safety. So we hope that the contract will have a residency requirement, or at least talk of restoring a residency requirement, a ban on paid leave for officers who kill someone. This would be incentive to get investigations moving quickly, and there can always be back pay. The public should be able to access officers' disciplinary records and any citizen complaints. They should remain on their files in perpetuity. I think presently they're able to erase them after a certain amount of time. And we want an independent agency to investigate all use of force cases and killings. Our group has over 450 signatures for such a board or such an agency, and while we can't pull together a citizen complaint review board in the next week or so when this is going to be voted on, there should be something in there about an independent agency. We want ongoing trainings for police in emotional self-regulation, how to communicate with people having a mental health crisis, anti-racism, safe conflict de-escalation, and we think these trainings should be built into the budget and listed somewhere in the contract. We've reached out to the FOP, we've reached out to the mayor's office. You probably know us more than they do, but we haven't received a response. So this would be great to see some work in this area, and I know next week perhaps you're having a working meeting, and we hope that the public will be able to be a part of that, and that can be shared widely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a copy of Resolution 44?
I don't.
Is it over? It's over here.
That'd be great. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else to my right? Anyone in the middle, please?
Good evening, I'm Daniel D. Graham, 217 North 2nd Street here in Harrisburg. Well, speaking of police, I think there are more police patrols downtown here. At least now and then I see some police officers patrolling 2nd Street on foot and now and then on bicycles, and that's good. Also driving by in their police cars also. That's good, but we need more police patrols, regular, on both in cars and on foot and on bicycle every day and every night. Again, hire as many new police officers as the budget allows. Also, speaking about the capital area transit, regarding Cumberland County, I think the state should, if Cumberland County won't cooperate and pay their share of funding to CAT, then the state should overrule Cumberland County and either make them pay or take over the Cumberland County Board commissioners and either get the funding from Cumberland County or the state should pay more subsidy to the capital area transit and provide more bus service on the streets and roads, both Mondays through Fridays and Saturdays also. There's still a great lack of public transit bus service. On Saturdays, there's only one CAT bus route going from Harrisburg over to the West Shore. That's the M. Mechanicsburg route, which runs straight over Market Street through Lemoyne and Camp Hill to 32nd, south on 32nd to Trindle, and then west on Trindle Road all the way into Mechanicsburg and Main Street in Mechanicsburg, which is good, but we need a lot more CAT bus service on Saturdays. And in New Cumberland, there's no service at all on Saturdays. That's not right. Every city and town should have adequate CAT bus service every day in the week, running frequently, at least every half hour, all day and all evening, up until 12 midnight. Also, again, let's get a regional commuter rail system running as soon as possible. Run commuter trains on all the present rail routes coming from Harrisburg. Going to outlying areas in all directions. There are rail routes already in place. All it needs is repair work on some of the tracks so that trains can run at reasonable fast speeds like 40 to 50 miles an hour. Even that's faster than driving a car through heavy traffic. So, again, let's get frequent, reliable commuter rail service running as soon as possible, and maybe we either... And also, another possibility is to have Amtrak extend some of their Keystone commuter trains to run west from Harrisburg on the line from Harrisburg to Carlisle, and also on the line from Harrisburg to Gettysburg via Mount Holly Springs. I believe some people would ride the trains from those towns also. Again, all other rail routes should be explored with commuter rail service. Harrisburg to Lebanon and Hershey and north to Millersburg and Halifax and south to York and many other places also. And also a second Amtrak passenger train on the present Amtrak line from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh. Again, I believe there is enough public interest, and I believe enough people would ride that a second train from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh early in the morning, and then coming back from Pittsburgh in the middle of the afternoon from Pittsburgh back to Harrisburg.
Okay,
And
Mr. Graham.
that way, a train traveler could make the round trip by train from Harrisburg to Pittsburgh and back in one day and not have to spend a high price to stay overnight at a hotel in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So let's get this. And so again, let's get this expanded passenger rail service running. We do have good passenger rail service as it is on the present Amtrak line, thank God. Yes, but we can use more Amtrak passenger trains and local and regional commuter rail trains as soon as possible. Thank you much. God bless.
Thank you. Anyone else? The middle.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Cook. I'm a resident of the city of Harrisburg, and I didn't come here to discuss the cat situation, but one question that I have just hearing the presentation is what, if any, action has Cumberland County taken with respect to approving the budget? And what seems to be an obvious thing is there been any attempt to get all the parties in the room? In addition to the CAT board, obviously the municipal leaders who will ultimately make the decisions and approve, is Dauphin County willing to sit in the room with Cumberland County, willing to sit in the room with Harrisburg? And I don't know how this is ever going to get resolved because I was present at the meeting at this meeting when the Cumberland County representative came in. And while people can get behind regionalization, the question is how does any citizen support any initiative when the leaders don't seem to be able to even take the time or have the willingness to sit down with each other and try to hammer out the issues that we might be facing? Everybody can't just say, I want it my way, I want it my way, and not be willing to compromise to any degree. And for this discussion to continue to go on, and there doesn't appear that any progress is being made, is really, quite frankly, a little disconcerting. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but clearly I don't see how on earth it can get resolved if the leaders are not willing to sit down in the same room and try to resolve certain issues. What I did come to address the council about, and to obviously not get a resolution at this point, but to determine which subcommittee would be overseeing these issues, are two things, one of which I've had informal discussions with President Williams and others relating to parking of semis, trucks and tractor trailers my concern is Division Street. Often there will be 4, 5, 6, or 7 vehicles parked there. They park for extended periods of time. It makes it very difficult to pull off of 4th Street or other streets because they're parked on the north side of Division facing west, and you're having to maneuver around them and see, creating extreme traffic problems. Also, if there are no ordinance on the books, you basically have vehicles that can park for extended periods of time. We don't know who they're registered to. We don't know who they belong to. The cabs or the trailers are obviously not something we can see in. We don't know what types of materials are in there. Are there illegal materials? Are there hazardous materials? And they're parking in residential communities. There are no placards. There are no ordinances. There don't seem to be any control. Now, the last time we spoke informally, somehow miraculously the trucks disappeared for months, but I've noticed they're coming back. We welcome certain businesses. Well, we didn't welcome them. We didn't even know they were coming, quite frankly. But now that they're here, we're not necessarily saying that they're creating a disruption, certainly not in my specific block, but the truck drivers cannot just decide they're going to park in residential communities. There's not another municipality anywhere in this region that would allow 7, 8 trucks to park directly across from people's home and directly across from a middle school. And whatever committee oversees this, I would like to know, because I would like to work with whoever it is, because if there is not something on the books, there clearly needs to be something on the books as quickly as possible. My other issue is a transitional housing situation. I have noticed that in neighborhoods throughout the city, all of a sudden, residents are popping up where there are people who are living there who appear to be transitioning from correction facilities into communities. Again, not an individual that says we should not welcome back into our community the people who came from our community who are trying to reestablish their lives. All of you know Harrisburg is a region where we have an inordinate number of community correction facilities, drug and alcohol, rehab facilities, and halfway houses. People are coming in from all over the state. They stay for extended periods of time, and then they want to make Harrisburg their home, which, again, if we can absorb them as a community, that's fine. My concern is that there are homes that are popping up which are clearly being occupied by people who are recently released from prisons. We don't know what their offenses are. We don't know who owns the homes. We don't know who we should reach out if there's any problem. And a house where you have 4 or 5 men living in a residential community where there are children. Again, I would like to know what, if any, ordinances are on the books that oversee this, and if there aren't any, I think we as a community need to step up and ensure that while we are willing to welcome reentry people back into our communities, we are not willing to do it with no controls. And I personally do not want on my block, because I believe I have 2 now, homes where people are living who are transitioning from correctional facilities, and I don't know what their offenses are, who they are, and who is overseeing them. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you have a couple minutes after the meeting, I'd like to sit with you and speak with you concerning those 2 issues.
All right.
Okay? Anyone else in the middle? Anyone else to my left? Hey, Chief, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, man?
We've been speaking about this tractor trailers. Chief and I have been calling every other day about the tractor trailers. As a matter of fact, we have a resident who lives up on Graham Street. Is that Graham Street? He gave us a video of how many tractor trailers are parked on. So,
And I could do the same, because
we've been working, and Mr. Grover has told us that we do not have anything in place that addresses that, but I've been working with him to try to address an ordinance so that we don't have 10 and 15 of them parked alongside Division Street and Jefferson Street, and now 6th Street. So I will meet with you afterwards, and maybe we can meet with the chief and Mr. Grover at a later date.
It's doable. You just have to take some time and do it.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll work on that. Thank you. Moving on to approval of minutes. Approve the legislative session minutes of April 24th, 2017. Are there any omissions, corrections, or deletions, council members? Hearing none, minutes will stand as such. Reports of committees, we have none this evening. Ordinance for first reading, none. Ordinance for amendment, none. And ordinance for final passage, we have none. We move on to resolutions. Resolution 11 of 2017. Mr. Petrosky, please read that into record.
Resolution 11 of 2017 was moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Mr. Johnson. It's a resolution approving the transfer of 22 non-conforming or otherwise irregular properties to the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority for sale or other disposition.
Questions or comments on Resolution 11, council members?
Just a quick comment. If and when this resolution is adopted, are the parcels in question public? Are they made public along with the resolution when it's posted?
Yes, actually, there was an attachment to the resolution.
Yeah, I have the
parcel,
attachment.
But
Yeah,
all of that is public.
Okay, all right.
It's public now, actually.
Okay, I just want to make sure that residents know that all these what's happening with the property, so, okay, thank you.
Mr. Majors, do you also want to state what you were made aware of this evening regarding those properties?
Oh, yeah, for the public, the properties that are mentioned in, well, I might as well take the time just to list out the 22. 119 King Street, 117 King Street, 115 King Street, 159 North 15th Street, 158 North 15th Street, 1444 Regina Street, 1433.5 Regina Street, 1431 Regina Street, 31 North 15th Street, 25 North 15th Street, 19 North 15th Street, 11 North 15th Street, 2147 Jefferson Street, 2139 Jefferson Street, 2324 Jefferson Street, 2248 Atlas, 2246 Atlas, 2212 Atlas, 2210 Atlas, 2236 and 38 Logan Street, 1707 North 5th Street, and 2012 Forster Street. All these are properties that that we will be, I guess, turning over to the redevelopment authority. And if anyone that is adjacent to those properties or is interested in adopting a lot, they can reach out to the redevelopment authority and do so. Like I said, we want to make sure that we're continuing to take care of our community. If the redevelopment authority contracted with the city to keep the upkeep isn't enough, maybe citizens that live in those communities can adopt those lots and keep them up, or develop community gardens to continue to beautify the city of Harrisburg.
Thank you, Mr. Majors. Any other questions or comments? Please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Baltimore? Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 11 passes.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 38 of 2017.
Resolution 38 of 2017 was moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Mr. Johnson. It's a resolution approving a Comcast Enterprise Master Service Agreement for Ethernet services for the city's Department of Information Technology.
Any questions or comments on resolution? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Baltimore? Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 38 passes.
Thank you. Please move on to Resolution 42.
Resolution 42 of 2017 was moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Mr. Johnson. It's a resolution confirming the appointment of Mr. Malcolm M. Murray, Esquire, to serve as the Assistant City Solicitor for the City of Harrisburg's collection matters.
Any questions or comments on Resolution 42? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Baltimore? Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 42 passes.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 43.
Resolution 43 of 2017 was moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Mr. Johnson. A resolution approving a professional services agreement with SMS Systems Maintenance Services Incorporated for maintenance support of the city's SAN server.
That will be placed in the Administration Committee. Moving on to Resolution 44.
Resolution 44 of 2017 was moved by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Ms. Williams. It's a resolution of the Council of the City of Harrisburg ratifying the 2017 to 2020 collective bargaining agreement between the City of Harrisburg and the Fraternal Order of Police, Capital City Lodge Number 12.
That will be placed in Public Safety Committee. Moving on to old business. Council members, any old business? Any new business? Mr. Johnson?
Chief, you walked in, so I just have two quick questions. I guess we're working on that mental health contract with the Department of Corrections, and I guess the state finally signed off on that. So I know Dr. Lucas has been trying to arrange a good time for, I guess, a phone conference this week. So I kind of want to put that on your radar, because I don't want to miss out on that free opportunity.
Yes, we responded and sent a couple of days back that we can do that.
Okay. And then the second one, and I don't know if this is a you question or where we're at with it, but I guess just with this whole police contract, a lot of the questions I get from the public, I guess in regards to different aspects of it, I think the public is not aware of like it being an actual police contract. There also being certain like general orders, so they're kind of separate entities. And I was under the impression last time I talked with our solicitor that majority of our general orders was going to be published online. So I was trying to figure out where we were with that.
That would be for Mr. Grigsby, and I saw your email, which was, I think,
But yeah, he answered and said, if it's given to him, he'll post it. So
okay. We'll make sure he gets it. 'Cause we went through the list already,
okay,
so I'm surprised it's not there, Frank.
yeah, because I checked and it wasn't there. So that's why I'm asking. I think a lot of, during this process, I think there's going to need to be clarity of what's included inside where. So having that, posted so the public can see, I think would be beneficial. That's it.
Any other questions? Any other new business?
Just,
Oh, okay. Mr. Matrison, which one?
I'll be quick.
Okay, Mr. Allen.
So, Chief, I'm glad you're here too. I don't know if you're aware, on Sunday, Councilmember Baltimore witnessed a shooting on 15th Street. I applaud the officers that came out very quickly. In talking with the neighbors, there have been some suspicious activity have been occurring kind of in and around there for some time. And some of the residents expressed frustration over reporting and not feeling like there was adequate response leading up to what happened with the shooting when it occurred. And talking with Cornelius and Wes before the meeting, I think what might be helpful to be able to help the public at least understand how to maybe best report or how to make sure they're providing specific information to law enforcement to help aid in some of the enforcement, some of the challenges they have. We know sometimes there's a capacity issue in responding quickly to every need, and obviously things are prioritized on a regular basis, but I was thinking for myself, even having witnessed, thinking, what am I paying attention? How can I report that? But maybe something that we could put out to the community to help the community understand when you call, here are things that would be helpful to know, to keep in mind when reporting incidents to help aid in some of these matters going forward too. Because I share the frustration, obviously, with community members when they want to see change in their neighborhood. They know some suspicious things are happening, and I think that they don't know necessarily what they can report and how to do it. I'm just wondering if we could do something to help the community in that, to arm them with what to report and how and things along those lines.
Yes, we can do something like that, but you have to understand something that when the average person witnesses a shooting and they pick up their phone and they call it dispatch, dispatch is their program to ask certain questions. And anything that the reporter wants before the police does things like that.
Right.
They ask, what we'll call it, other people, direction of travel, clothing, vehicle, and what have you, and a lot of people don't have patience like, they say, you're out here shooting, get her now, click.
Yeah.
Oh, and listen, I get it, because being part of it, even, it was like a test to, Jeff and I were talking about as we were walking around afterwards, that we both couldn't give as much of a detailed response as we would have wanted, right? And so it's like, I feel like part of that's that education process to help people feel informed about what they can and how they can do it and how they can be helpful in that situation.
And it's also shock because the average person doesn't witness things like that, It's shock, and if I ask you a question about clothing, if I ask someone else, you both saw the same thing, but you saw two different colored clothing.
Yep.
You saw different size guns and what have you, But you are correct, there's a class that maybe I can start, just to school people on, what to say, how to say it, and just be patient and just answer the questions. That's why I miss my city dispatchers so much, because they were from the city, and they knew the people, and they were familiar with everybody. But Dauphin County Dispatch is just a dispatch service.
Right.
Just like dispatch, they just dispatch out incidents. That's it. It's not personable.
I think there's truth to that, but there's also, our department isn't responsive. Like, I know around that same area further south, there have been a few shootings where, people just called in after the fact to report where the shells of the bullets were, if you guys were interested, and nobody came to pick them out, and now they're like jewelry. It's like, so, with one of the artists, they waited like 10 days before they picked up the shell casings. With another artist, I don't know how long they waited, but we're not coming out.
We are coming up. Every time we get a call.
Excuse me, Chief. I don't know if the public is picking this up. Can you just sit here for a minute and talk in the mic? I would like the public to hear this as well. I don't know if they could hear you back and forth your conversation with Mr. Allard or not, but
Yes.
thank you.
No problem, ma'am.
Is the green light on?
Yes,
Okay.
it's on. As I was saying, that the other day I held a conversation with a citizen here. She reported, that 4th Street, 2100 block, that they were out there shooting and that they called the police and the police didn't show up and they called and they called. Well, I called Dauphin County Dispatch, first of all, and researched that information. Nobody called. There were shots fired out there. Everybody saw it, but no one called. So, but then they blame the police for not showing up. But if you don't call us, we don't know. A lot of instances, like people are just, I hate saying used to hearing shots fired, but in some areas they are, and they just don't call. They don't call, but to a lot of people's credit, this year they have been calling, and we have close to 90 handguns that we've taken off the street, arrested people. We have 5 shotguns, 7 rifles. So we do go to the calls when they call us, but they got to call.
And the instances, they did call and they were waiting, because they called after the shooting happened. They just knew, they heard the shooting and they went the next day and saw the shell casings.
Oh, so they called the next day.
Yeah, and they thought that something that the police department would want to see, the shell casing, so they didn't touch anything. And they just waited, and I think they called a second time to follow up, because with artists, they're like, this could be fired. And eventually they just picked it up, but nobody ever came and, did anything with the shell casing, so.
And I'm sure that happens too. Because it's a day later, a couple of days later, we may not get there. But if you call when the incident happens, we will come.
Is it due to the Dauphin County 911 dispatch that you don't get a lot of the calls?
It's due that people don't call.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well,
Go
on
ahead.
that topic, or
No,
just
on that
still new
topic.
business? On that topic, no.
Nothing on that? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Can I just say something about this young lady right here?
Yes.
Real quick, I understand what you're saying about the halfway houses, and I think that we must take action too, because there's too many halfway houses being brought to the city here, and they do it in a way, that we don't catch it until later on, and you do have the right to know why somebody's there. It could be a Megan's Law violator, it could be any numerous, incidents, why they're there, and you have that right to know. So, yes.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes.
Oh, but I do, if we're still on new business, I do just have a quick question for Chief.
Go ahead.
Hey, Chief, how you doing?
How you doing?
Yeah, the question just comes down to this. So, I guess previously there was a deal made about campaign advertisements and mailers and the use of your likeness. Recently, I've received a mailer that had your likeness on it. I just wanted to say, was that something that you volunteered to do, or was that used without your knowledge?
I knew it.
Okay. And that was okay, and then the other officers were okay with their likenesses being used?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because that was an issue that was brought up in the past, and I just wanted to make sure that that was okay. In terms of, so thank you, Chief. That was what I just had. I just was making sure. In terms of with the transitional housing or halfway houses, do we have anything on the books, Neil?
Yeah, it is, and it's
required
really,
by zoning?
the law has not kept up with the reality. These are zoned out of places a lot of times.
Okay.
And there's actually a prosecution right now that's trying to be attempted for one slumlord who's opening illegal transitional and other boarding houses. But the numbers are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Right.
There's not enough people to track them.
Okay. Well,
I've
then-
heard there's 23 allowed and over 100
Yeah.
transitional or illegal boarding houses. And the figure, if no one tells you it's there,
Right.
if no one files for permits, you don't know until
Okay.
someone complains.
So then what is that process? Because I personally know of a few residents that are concerned that that is what's about to
first thing
occur
to
in their
do is to
neighborhood.
contact-
What can they do?
Codes.
Codes, David.
And
Okay.
see if that's permitted there, if it's properly, because then someone come out and inspect it. if it's permitted. And then if there's a zoning violation that's not zoned for that, and they never got the clearance, then you actually have to then file what's called an action over in either the district justice court to get a daily fine to shut down, or in the common pleas court to get an equity action against them.
And actually, Melanie, the city planning's website actually has a link, so you could type in, you could look up any address and see what it's zoned for. So the moment you see that an address is, it's not zoned for multifamily or whatever, then you know automatically that you're able to file a complaint with our codes office.
And are they classified as rooming houses? Because I'm sure
Rooming
they're
houses
not.
just aren't allowed under the zoning code.
No, I'm just saying, like, the reality is we have rooming houses. That's the reality.
That's what I'm saying. The reality is not, and obviously that means there's a need. If there's 120 some of these houses out there, there is a need in the population of Harrisburg to serve it. And the codes have not, literally the city code has not kept up with that reality.
But when they're made aware, they do go out and inspect
They
them.
do go
'cause
out,
I
they go
gave
out and
them-
inspect them, they go out and shut them down.
And they shut them down. I gave them 5.
So you're saying rooming houses are not allowed within the
That is
zoning
my
code?
general understanding, is rooming houses are not
But
allowed.
we have
And
legal rooming houses.
there were maybe
No,
some that are grandfathered in, and there may be some that
No,
got
we do have,
variances.
I mean, we do have legal rooming houses.
Yeah, that was
There's
already
no
there.
denying that we have legal rooming houses.
There's 23 that are allowed from, I've grandfathered, and I don't know if they're allowed in the industrial zone or wherever they're
They were
allowed.
approved beforehand.
But that's what the fire chief had just recently told me
Okay.
discussing this, and he's found over 100
Yeah.
that are off the books. And you find them, unfortunately,
When they closed
when
down
something
on
happens,
Friday.
whether someone complains. The good news is when someone complains, the bad news is when there's a fire, and they come out there, and what they're doing is they're literally putting padlocks on the doors inside, which is dangerous as can be. They're running plumbing illegally, which means some plumber came in without a permit to put in all those individual sinks. But enforcement is tough, and the hard part is, from the humanities side, is how do you take the people and throw them out? The residents didn't do it, the people living there, that set these things up. But, do you come in and shut everybody out and throw them out on the spot with nowhere to go? Or how do you do it? So, if anyone has an easy answer to that, I'd love to know what that is.
And they closed something down on Friday.
We've had two that I know of that had fires in the last 3 months.
Yeah, he closed
Not
something.
bad fires,
I know they
but
closed
fires.
some, I know for a fact they closed one down on Friday.
Yeah, what we have is an ordinance that says that it's no more than, if it's, so something is, like my house is a private residence, but if there were 2 unrelated people living with me, right, then I could be running afoul of being this rooming house. So sometimes the challenge is just knowing who is in the unit or what the unit is for, because they're not advertised. Like I could, in theory, I could fit, like 8 or 10 people. So I could start renting out to like 8 or 10 different units in my house, and nobody would know that unless someone saw a lot of people coming to my house, and if they were all my relatives, that would be fine. So you'd have to know some information.
The city needs to revisit that
Yeah.
in connection with Airbnb places, which are popping up everywhere. And that's a reality too, but those are totally outside the zoning and permitting, to have your house suddenly be, a hotel on a regular basis.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on,
And-
new business, Mr. Majors?
Oh, and lastly, the South Alton Hill Multicultural Parade is happening this Saturday from 12 to 4 on the 1400 block of Derry Street. So just want to encourage city residents to come out and enjoy the festivities, the food, the fun, and enjoy our South Alton Hill neighborhood. That was the last comment from me. Thanks.
Thank you. Nothing else? Okay. Is for an adjournment?
Yes, please.
May I have a second?
Second.
Meeting is officially adjourned.